The Bunker Boys Underground, show number 3. This show's about bad internet installation, news about Bert Burtis and Dick Orkin's passing, drones and how not to fly them, UFOs, black-eyed children, my airplane stories, and 2 stories about our brushes with celebrity. To reach us, email Chris and Garth at bunkerboysunderground@gmail.com. From a secret underground bunker somewhere in the Arizona desert, 40 feet below the Earth's surface, 2 men, aided by their robotic artificial intelligence, Jennifer,
Jennifer, at your service.
hide from their wives and kids to discuss man stuff with interesting and unusual people. These men are the Bunker Boys. Well, hello and welcome to Bunker Boys Underground. We're so glad to have you with us. And along with me, of course, is our usual cast of characters. We've got Garth.
Hello.
And he's my cohort in crime here. I shouldn't say crime. It's not really a crime. Although maybe we'll think so later.
You never know.
And we've got Jennifer, too, who is our artificial intelligence assistant. Right, Jen?
Oh, really?
Well, yes. But we're always pleased to have you with us, right?
Yes.
Thank you, boys.
You're so welcome.
You're welcome,
It's
Jim.
nice to have you. It's getting warm in here, Jennifer. Can
Yes,
you
it is.
turn it down just a little bit in the old man cave?
The bunker down below.
Yes, Master.
Well, there's a few things I wanted to cover. We always cover something of the strange and bizarre and unusual, and of course some of real life stuff too. You just got internet installed.
Yeah, we did.
Not to bring up a sore subject, up here we rely on radio internet, and it's unlimited bandwidth or unlimited downloads and uploads, but it's just not reliable for uploads. It's so slow. I tried to upload our first show, and it's not working real good. But I finally got it to work, and we got it posted. So thanks for all your patience waiting for it.
Yay, it's up.
It's up. It's running. It's available on, it's supposed to be on YouTube, but I can't find it there yet. But for sure it is on iTunes, because I have found it. So if you search Bunker Boys, you'll find us. And look for our logo, Bunker Boys Underground. Otherwise, you might get the other Bunker Boys, which are singers, and we didn't do that song. So just so you know, there's another set of Bunker Boys out there. But our official title is Bunker Boys Underground.
Underground,
Yes.
exactly.
So,
Because we're underground.
yeah, technically. I mean, listen to that echo.
Echo?
Well, not echo, it's reverb. There's a difference. Echo is when something repeats, and reverb is when you sound kind of like you're in a cave, as we are here. I wanted to talk a little bit about, after we get through your sore subject, when they nailed
that subject.
tell us what happened with that. I mean, don't get into names or anything, but
Why? No.
because we don't want to, target anybody. But, common sense helps a lot in real life situations.
Yes, it does, especially in this one.
Yeah, what happened with your antenna?
Well, the high-speed internet guy came out to put it up and everything after, 2 days of no show and no call. The third day, he finally came out and he talked for about an hour and a half about what he did for a living before he started this. And I'm like, can you just get the show on the road there, buddy? But anyways, you have to find a direct path from the source of power to your power.
Right.
Okay.
To the antenna.
To the antenna. So I don't really know how to do all this stuff anyway, so I'm just quoting what I was quoted when he got to my house. Okay, so we're kind of behind a hill from the direct path of what's up on the mountain.
So you have to get it up pretty high to hit that.
Yes. And so he had to put this antenna on the roof. Yours is on the side of your house because you have a direct path.
Yeah, I'm a little high. I'm past the hill, so I can hit the mountain directly.
Exactly.
Where the antenna is. Yeah.
So what I could have topped one little tree, and he could have put it on the fascia of the house, but this bonehead stuck it in top of the roof
Through the shingles.
through the shingles, and he didn't put any sealant, no mastic or silicone down. He just drilled right into the roof.
Brother.
Okay, so he said he was going to, put mastic on it and everything else. So I got up on the roof the other day to see if I needed to clean the chimney out because it's winter right now. Oh, by the way, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
And I get up on the roof and look at the chimney. Okay, I got to clean a little bit. So, oh, you know what? I'm going to go see how this guy did this over here. So I walk over there, and this bracket he put on is bent. I showed you the pictures of it today.
Yeah, incredible.
It's bent on two corners. It's bent up. The screws aren't even fully screwed into the roof.
Yeah, they're like a half inch out and not even all the way in.
They're not even all the way in.
So the first big windstorm you have, it's going to bend that thing all to hell. and back.
Exactly. So, and there's not even any mastic laid down to seal the holes. So if it would have snowed or rained, I would have been, the ceiling would have been dripping with water.
So now you have to go back in and patch that.
I
somehow.
do, because we can't get a hold of the people. They're not calling us back or anything.
Yeah,
And
that's aggravating.
it is. When I came over here this morning, I was, fit to be tied. I took pictures of it and everything else, and
Oh, yeah, looking at the pictures, that is a pathetic install.
isn't it?
And it looks like they dropped it off the truck before they decided to put it up on your roof.
Exactly.
I mean, the flush mount is the corner,
It's
like you
bent.
said, it's bent.
Right.
So even if they did screw it down flat, it wouldn't be flat.
Right.
Because right at the corners, right where you would attach it, it's bent
It's
up.
bent up.
So
And there's a half an inch of screw showing underneath
two
that.
places.
In two places.
2 screws, not all the way screwed in. So yeah, that was kind of a half-donkeyed
What do you mean
install.
half donkey? It was a whole donkey.
It was
install.
donkeyed. Hee-haw.
But anyways, yeah, and so I have to get up there. We can't get a hold of the people. They're not calling us back or
Yeah,
so
predicted that.
who told me about this place again? My good friends.
I think it was me.
Uh-huh.
But, they did okay on ours. We had a different installer, I'm sure. But I don't know. Ours is working okay. I mean, for off-grid internet, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
still-
Mary says it's not too bad.
So that's good.
It slows down every once in a while, she said.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's
Well,
okay.
Until they get it improved, this is the best we're going to be able to do. And so I'm going to have to drive into McDonald's and get on their internet to upload our show.
McDonald's.
Yeah, well, it sure tastes good, doesn't it? I did want to bring out, when I first got into radio, back when I was 18 years old, I went to broadcast school in Cleveland. And I teamed up with a guy that also was going to school, and his name is Kurt Kanievsky. And Kurt is he's a great writing talent. And he sent me an email the other day. We kind of had lost touch for many years and recently got back into touch. And he sent me an email saying he was excited because Bert Burtis, who was a kind of a cohort of Dick Orkin, anybody that's in broadcasting and radio might know those names. These two guys were a comedy team. They used to write a show called Chicken Man back in the 60s, about 1968. And if you haven't seen it or heard it, well, it's actually a radio show, so you wouldn't see it. But check it out on YouTube because it's clever writing. It's a little dated because back in the 60s, But they were brilliant writers. They did great radio. They had simple sound effects that were goofy. That sounded like you were listening to a cartoon soundtrack. And the writing was brilliant. Well, Bert sent a note to my friend Kurt, who had sent him his audition of comedy commercials he writes. And just to get a feel for, is he on the right track? Well, Bert wrote him a note back and said he'd hire him today if he were still in business. And I told Kurt, I said, well, we both knew that. You're a good writer and you know how to produce things and you're funny and it's not everybody's cup of tea these days. But man, if you want interesting stuff, you've got to make it funny and make it memorable.
Oh, yeah.
But Bert wrote him back and said, gave him the ultimate compliment that he would have hired him if he were still doing those things. And I thought that was a great thing.
That's pretty darn neat.
Yeah, it's like getting confirmation from your hero that you're on the right track.
Yep.
And then this happened just a few days before Christmas that I got that text from my friend Kurt. And then Christmas Eve, we got word that Dick Orkin had passed away. He was the author of Chicken Man and Bert's cohort. And I just thought, it's such a sad thing. Dick was 84, but brilliant writer. Chicken Man, he had over 250 episodes of that. The Secret Adventures of the Tooth Fairy, which are hysterical, and where he pretends to be this schmo that's a tooth fairy. He's like a regular guy, and sometimes he's depressed, and I gotta go put another $1 under a kid's pillow, and so.
Well, no, way back then it used to be a quarter.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. I guess I should get with the times here. But then he had one show that I'd never heard of, the Ace Trucking Company News Cavalcade of the Airwaves. It just kind of trips off the tongue.
There's a mouthful, yeah.
But the best memorable ones were the Chicken Man episodes and the Tooth Fairy. The Secret Adventures of the Tooth Fairy. And he was over the top, hi, I'm the Tooth Fairy. Just a real simple schmo stuff. But you've heard his voice a million times. His most popular campaigns were probably in the 80s and 90s for Time Magazine, and it was the first comedy commercials Time Magazine had ever done. And then the other thing that he had done, what was it? It'll come to me later. But didn't realize he'd actually gone to Yale and Franklin and Marshall College and wanted to get into acting, but it wasn't conducive to family life, so he gave that idea, and the next best thing was radio. So he just, did radio ads.
He went to Yale?
He went to Yale. And then he opened Dick Orkin's Radio Ranch and did nothing but comedy commercials. I saw him at the Cleveland Advertising Club back in the 80s, or was it 90s? Early 90s, I think it was. And he came to give a speech to the ad club and talk about how to make radio creative, because it's the theater of the mind, and people just don't use it like they should.
Right.
And he talked about how to make things funny and some of the situations that he came into writing commercials for advertisers. And his thing right on his website, he would just tell everybody, I do funny commercials. That's what I do. I do comedy commercials. If you want a straight ad, don't come see me. I don't do those. If you want something funny, creative, theater of the mind, then I'll do it. Let's talk. So he talks to this guy that's owns some big company. I think it was a car dealership. And he wanted, Dick was from the Chicago area, is where he did most of his work at the time, I think. And then later moved to Los Angeles. And he was talking to the guy, and the guy told him, I would like you to do a jingle for me. I really need a jingle. And Dick goes, do you know what I do? I don't do jingles. I do comedy commercials.
Yeah, and that was just what he said, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Right before-
yeah, and he says, if you want a jingle, go to a company that does that.
Right.
So the guy insisted, and Dick goes, okay, all right, I'll do it. And what he came up with, and I wish I could play it because it's hysterical. I have a copy of it somewhere, but I don't have permission to play it. But it is brilliant. He has this guy coming in. You hear sound effects of footsteps walking into the jingle studio. And he goes, hi, we're at so-and-so jingle studio. Come on in. This is our talent. And this is the owner of the company. And he goes, hi. And the talent goes, I'm ready to sing a song. And he says, all right, let's take one. And the real-life guy that told him what he wanted in the jingle, he goes, it should go like something, 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 sing, 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 something, big finish, and then my name of my company, like Al Crises Chevrolet or whatever it was. He goes, okay. So when the guy sings the jingle and he's in the studio, he goes, all right. He says, go ahead, take one. And the guy starts to sing, and he says, something, something, something. And you hear the guitar playing in the background. Sing, 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 big finish, Al Crises Chevrolet. The guy in the studio that was running the session goes, that's brilliant. That was perfect.
Oh, my.
And the owner of the company that's, the voice of the guy that's playing the owner of the company goes, oh, I thought it was wonderful. That was just fantastic. And they kind of walk off. But it's that kind of stuff that he tells stories about. He tells a story about a Hawaiian shirt manufacturer that wanted to promote their Hawaiian shirts, and they didn't make real Hawaiian shirts, but they were kind of phony Hawaiian shirts, knockoffs, but they looked like Hawaiian shirts. But he wanted an ad for that. So truth in advertising, Dick gets right on it and goofs on it, and talks about, well, they're not real Hawaiian shirts, but they sure do look like it, and he sets up some comedy bit.
And parts of it really feels like real Hawaiian shirts.
Yes. Get your real pineapple Hawaiian shirt. Dick was just a genius. There's a big hole, gaping hole in the world of advertising because of his passing. But I just wanted to bring that to light because he was one of my heroes. Still is.
Well, bless his soul.
Yeah, it's a shame. His daughter's into acting. I guess she's done several movies, and she's also a writer. But brilliant stuff. I wish I could remember the stories he told because they were just hysterical.
Boy, it is getting warm in here. You're going to have Jennifer tell Smitty to turn things down, I think.
Yeah.
Smitty.
Smitty's in the engine room. Yeah, whatever happened to Smitty?
I don't know.
Smitty's tinkering again.
Oh.
Okay, well, Jennifer, if you could handle that for us.
Yes, Master.
Okay. Boy, if you could just get your kids to work that way, right?
Oh, I know.
It'd be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be something?
Well, I suppose we could talk about our drones. We're junior pilots now.
We're junior pilots, yes. Very junior pilots.
Yeah, it seems that every time I fly mine, I at least lose it once or twice. And the batteries only last 10 minutes.
Right. Oh, is that what yours last too?
Yeah, it's about 10, depending on how much you fly or how high you fly it.
Right.
And then mine came with 2 batteries, so I have at least another one to play with on occasion. I had mine out yesterday, and it flew beautifully. I mean, it was so calm yesterday, and you can't fly it in high wind.
Right.
But I noticed that once you get up aloft there pretty high, the winds pick up a little bit.
Just a little bit, and
It's enough to
knocks
mess
it
it
off
up.
kilter.
Yeah, it sure does. My wife was out. I had her fly it, too. I said, try it. And she did great the first time. I had much more trouble than she did. I think women do have a
Knack for
steadier
things,
hand.
yeah.
So, but yeah, it was fun. And then we got the video to work, and of course, it looks pretty wacky.
Oh, you did get the video to work? Cool.
I didn't get very good shots though, because it tends to angle down. So you have to almost tilt the thing up and have it. I don't know how you would even do it. We might have to adjust the little switches on the propellers to make the front end higher or
The
something.
rotos or rotors,
Rotors,
whatever they
yeah.
call those things.
Yeah, but they're fun, and it is a blast to fly it. And boy, you do need the room to do it, because even I've got this big wide area. I think I have a little more area than you do that's open, and even with that, it seems like I don't have enough. Yeah.
Well, I got mine. I flew mine. When was it? Christmas Eve. I flew mine, and I was down the hill where the trailer is. It was going great. Everything I was, videoing and everything. You see the driveway all the way out to the main road out there, and pretty cool and everything. I got it stuck in the tallest tree around the house.
That's always the way it works.
So luckily, my buddy Billy, when he lived here about 10 years ago, he was a telephone guy. When they really had telephones back then, and he had this wire pole. What did he call that the other day?
I can't remember what he called it.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but you could extend it out to like 40 feet.
Yeah.
I said, oh, that's right. So I went up the hill, grabbed the ladder, and the drone was at the tip top of this tree.
Of course. Going to do it, you might as well do it right. Huh?
Yeah, that's what I always say.
And keep in mind, our drones are not the $1,000 to $1,200 nice ones. Ours are the discount variety.
The $100 ones. But yeah, they're fun, like you said. It's something for us old men to do.
Yeah, it keeps us out of trouble 10 minutes at a time.
10 minutes at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the only drag about them, too. You could actually probably 8 minutes in. It all depends on how high your speed is, too. Because it has 3 speeds. It has 50%, 70%, and 100%.
Yeah.
So if you go to 100%, it uses more juice because it's flying faster.
Right, that makes sense.
So once the battery's done, it'll just fall right out of the sky.
Yeah, it just comes right down.
Goes, meow.
Mine tends to sense that it's about ready to run out of juice, and then it stops responding as good as it used to, and then it starts to come down on its own.
Right.
So I've noticed that.
So don't be over trees when that happens.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. You got to get the big hook
Again.
like you did. Yeah, it's fun though.
It is. I'm getting the hang of it a little bit better.
Yeah, me
And then
too.
plus, once you get it far enough away from you, you can't tell what's front or the back.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to tell by the lights, the LEDs
Well, you
underneath.
can't see them during the day.
That's true. It's very difficult.
You can't see them. I mean, and the only you have on your control sticks. You have a left and right, and up and down, and bank left and bank right, and it's hard to spin the thing around. Mine has a little antenna sticking out the butt,
Okay.
so that's how I can tell if mine's kind of facing
Which
forward.
direction?
Right. So if I could see that little antenna, okay, so that's the back. Okay, I got to turn this baby around, otherwise I'm going to be a half a mile away,
Yeah, I can see that. I lost control of it. Mine went down the road, and I was almost out to the road from, it's probably about, 100 yards from where I launched it, and I started to lose control over it. And I go, oh, turn around. Which direction are you facing? And,
See?
And my wife's watching it. She goes, I'm going to keep my eye on it in case it comes down. But like we both found out, you can keep your eye on it, and you think you know where it went down,
Right.
but it's always 50 feet away from where you thought.
Right.
So you do have to be careful, and when you lost yours, that's why I said call the wife in. She'll find it. She's the bloodhound.
It was lost for a week,
Yeah, that's funny.
and it was down by where my shooting range was,
Yeah,
my target for when I practice shooting.
I'm so glad she found that because man, that's not even the cheapy rate we bought them at. It's
Right.
not cheap. So it's time now for our strange occurrences update. Well, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and it's UFOs. I only like them because we don't know what they are, and there's always something new that's being reported. I was listening to some guy talk about it the other day, and he was saying that there have been 960,000 reports in the world of UFOs in the last year.
Wow.
That's the most ever reported. And along with, of course, all the video cameras we have now, every cell phone is a camera,
Yeah.
and we're getting lots and lots of photos of these things now. But still no closer to what they are. It's, my little sighting the other day, or back in October, red ball glowing. I'm going to post that on our website. There's a link to something. I didn't shoot the picture or the video of it, but it was in the news, and it's been all over the world. They've been sighting these red glowing balls in every country of the world. So I thought it would be fun to post it on our website. And our website is bunkerboysunderground.podbean.com. That's bunkerboysunderground, all one word, .podbean, PODBEAN.com. And I'm going to post it in the show notes for show number 2. And then you can look at that and maybe click the link and go look at the video. And that's exactly what I saw.
I wonder if anybody else has seen them who's listening right now.
Yeah. If you've seen any red orbs or any color orb, I've seen amber
Or anything
ones,
like that.
or
Yeah,
anything like that. Yeah, it's interesting.
it is.
People used to think I was nuts when I would talk about stuff like this, and I'd never seen one. I thought, well, why would all these people lie about it?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. It brings ridicule on them, and they get made fun of. But now people aren't afraid to say much anymore.
That's why nobody used to say anything.
Yeah,
Back
I don't-
then they were afraid of getting ridiculed.
Yeah, I don't care now.
I don't care either.
You know,
If they
everyone's
think
got-
I'm nuts, let it be.
There are people that believe in dumber things than what I have seen. So your brother was talking about something to you at one time about what he saw during Vietnam War.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right.
Tell that story, because that to me is a really fascinating subject.
No.
Okay. Now on to cooking with
Now let's
Julia
go.
Child.
No, this is in the 60s, of course, when Vietnam was getting started. He was telling me that they were on a ship heading to Vietnam. They weren't drinking or drug using or anything because they're in the military. They're on a ship.
Yeah.
going over to Vietnam to go fight. So they're all sitting, him and his buddies, they're all sitting out on the deck smoking a cigarette. He said, and they're all, sitting down, leaning up against the bulkhead's the wall, basically. Mm-hmm. And and it was pitch black outside. All you could see is stars and everything else. And, hear the humming of the engines and hear the water hitting the side of the boat, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, they're looking out, into nowhere, basically. It's all black. And all of a sudden, they see this thing come shooting out of the ocean. No noise, no nothing. Just takes off.
Wow.
He couldn't really gauge how far away it was, but he says it was big, but it just came shooting out of the ocean, out in the middle of the ocean, out of nowhere, shooting into the sky and never looked back.
Wow.
Just disappeared. No noise, no nothing.
Did he say it was glowing, or was it metallic, or what did it look like?
It was glowing a little bit, but just like a dot or something, Well, I guess it's about as big as your fist, is however far away it was.
Okay.
And it just right out of the ocean, straight up into the sky, and with no noise, no nothing.
Well, they have a name for those now. They call those USOs, unidentified submerged objects.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they call them.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah, I've heard tell of those things. I've heard people that were out in the ocean for a long time seeing them. In fact, I read one story where a guy said there was like a school of them, all like flying in formation underwater, and they could see them through the water. And then they all lifted up and flew out and went to the horizon and disappeared.
That would have been something to see.
Yeah, so it's happening more and more on the ocean. My uncle told me. Now, my uncle, he was a practical joker, and people that knew him well knew that he would pull shenanigans on people. But he told me, and you could always tell when he was dead serious. I mean, he wouldn't put on airs when he was telling you the truth about something. One day, I probably was about 14 or 16. I can't remember how old I was at the time. But I asked him, I said, "Hey, Uncle Leo, did you ever see anything out in the forest that you couldn't explain?" I was thinking Bigfoot, without having to say it. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he can tell a story that he ran into something or heard something in the woods that he couldn't explain. And I said, "Have you ever done that, run into something you couldn't explain?" And he said, "Yes, as a matter of fact, I have." And he just looked at me stone cold serious. And he says, "I was out hunting in the Allegheny forest." And he said, the forest gets much darker before, outside the forest does, because of all the trees blocking the light. So when the sun begins to set, it's already dark in the forest, but it's still light if you were outside the forest. And it was very dark, and he said it was time to head back to the hunting camp where he and his brothers would stay. And the Allegheny, I don't know if anyone has ever been there before, but it's just dead black dark out there. So they would stay in this log cabin, I believe, that they had built. And he said that as he was on his way back to that cabin, he just happened to notice and look up above the trees. And now, this is an old-growth canopy of trees. These trees some of them are 100 years old plus. Mm-hmm. And they're very, very tall. 60-foot tall trees is not unheard of. So as he said, he was looking above the canopy of trees, he said, "I saw this metallic thing sitting there." I said, "Well, was it a blimp? What was it?" He said, "I don't know what it was, but it was not a blimp. And it was just sitting there above the trees, like it was just hanging there, nothing holding it, just floating." And he said it kind of floated. It wasn't perfectly stationary. It just kind of like it was floating on a current of air or something.
Oh, we do.
And he said it was gunmetal gray, and it started to change color. He said, "I heard absolutely nothing. It was just dead silent." But he said it started to change color, and it went from this gunmetal gray to a little brighter color. It went from like a reddish glow to an orange to a yellow, and then to a blue, and then finally when it got to like a bright, brilliant white, he said you could hardly stand to look at it. It was bright as the sun. And as soon as it turned white, it went from the top of the trees to the horizon.
Gone.
as far as he could see it. And he couldn't see well because he's in that canopy
Right.
of trees. But he could see it through the trees as it went straight off and disappeared. He said, I never saw anything like it since.
I wonder if it was watching him.
Maybe.
That's strange.
But he said he felt that it was intelligently controlled. It was not, it was not, he felt it was a machine, like it was a piloted machine.
So this was 50 years ago?
He
say?
said that happened back in the 50s. And this is before, I think we just gotten into jet flight at that time, right?
Wow.
So I don't know what the history is of aircraft. I forget. I'm
I
just
don't
guessing. But yeah, just
That's
interesting to know.
Pretty darn wild, if you ask me.
Yeah, and he still didn't know what it was, but he was mystified by it. And just the look on his face when he told the story, I mean, it was a big mystery.
Yeah, I think you could tell if something's true just by the looks on the person's face who's explaining it,
Yeah. If you know them, too, it
Right.
makes a difference. When he's joking, I mean, he's always had a smile on his face or a gleam in his eye.
A little
But,
smirk here and there.
Right. But that was not what he was doing at the time he told me. And I've heard people tell me that they've heard Bigfoot noises or, things in the forest they couldn't explain.
Well, I believe in that too.
Yeah, I do too. Again, people don't lie about everything they experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember back in the 70s, remember the movie Legend of Boggy Creek?
Yes.
That was the first big movie that was about anything like that I could remember. About the Bigfoot experience and these kids that were out camping in Boggy Creek.
That was the town of Legend.
Yeah, I think so. Legend.
But yeah, it's you see them out here every once in a while too.
Well, they have in the Mogollon Rim around the Grand Canyon. There's supposed to be a bunch of them. I've not spoken to anyone that's ever seen one there, but you read about them. They're in the Williams area, Flagstaff area, and it's far south is Williams, I've heard. And that brings me to another thing that we've heard rumor about: black-eyed children. Have you heard about them?
Yes.
That's pretty spooky.
That is pretty spooky. They are pretty spooky.
Yeah. I was watching a show on that. In fact, I've got them on YouTube, but they have a bunch of UFO-type mystery shows where the unexplained happens and people talk about it. And since I'm fascinated with that, I watch a lot of those. And these guys are now saying that these black-eyed children that have they have like a white to their, they have no white to their eye. Their whole eye is black. And they apparently appear to be some sort of evil that are affecting a lot of people. And I was telling this story about this guy that told his story on that show, and he said that he was driving a pickup truck, and he liked to drive at night because it was peaceful and quiet. He'd listen to the radio, and he'd drive through this part of town. He'd have 2 or 3 hours he'd have to kill. So as he's driving home from this work site that he worked at, he happened to see this little kid along the road, and he pulls off, and he goes, "Man, this is out in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to have a kid out here. What happened? Maybe his parents had an accident." So he pulls off, and he turns around and goes back, and there's kids standing outside his window. He pulls up next to him, and he looked at him, and he said he had no eyes. They were just black sockets, or if his eyes were there, they were just solid black. And the kids, he said he spoke very strangely. He said, "Can I come in?" He didn't say, "Can I get in your truck?" He just said, "Can I come in?"
Wow.
And he said it freaked him out. And he said, I floored it and got out of there.
I don't blame him.
And then he said, I thought about it again. I thought, well, maybe the kid had some sort of eye problem I didn't realize, or maybe there was some reason that he looked the way he did. And he said, when I turned around and looked in the rearview mirror, there was no one there.
He was gone.
And he said, I turned around, and he said, this is miles away from any town. There's no way that he could have gone anywhere except in a ditch. So he drove back and looked and took his spotlight and shined it along the edge of the road out into the desert, and there was nothing. Nothing there. So his feeling was, and it was a feeling, he said, is that this is something evil that appeared before him.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't fault the guy.
That gives me heebie-jeebies there.
It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah. You were telling me about you know a guy actually that
Oh,
saw
yeah,
something.
yeah. So I was telling that story to him. I said, have you ever heard of such a thing? And he just kind of looked to the floor and he said, well, yeah, I have.
Isn't that
I said, what did you hear? And he goes, well, it wasn't what I heard. It's what I saw myself. And he lives down along Baseline Road in Phoenix. I don't know, it's just south of town. And he was telling me that he went to take the trash out one evening about 9 o'clock. And he said, I walked out, you could see the stars, and the street lights were on. And as he deposited his trash can out to the curb, where they pick it up in the morning, he happened to look over and he saw this little kid out this late at night. He thought that was kind of strange. And the closer he looked, the more he realized that kid didn't have a face. He was like in a hood, like he was wearing a hoodie. When he looked at its face, the eyes glowed red, but you couldn't see any detail. There was no nose or no mouth. But he was right at this corner of this little pony wall between the houses. It was maybe a 3-foot high wall, maybe 4 foot, I don't know. But it wasn't a real high wall. And he said it was sticking its face out around the wall. And he said when he kind of looked at it, it scared him. And then he was curious, and he walked a little closer to it, and there was nothing there. But he said, I know there was something standing there.
Wow.
And it had red glowing eyes. So then I told him about some of the other stories I'd heard, that when people do see these things, they're either they see black-eyed children or they see, red-eyed things. One of these days, I'm going to get my buddy to come in and tell the story himself, because he tells it better, and it's really kind of makes it hair-raising when he tells it.
That'll be interesting.
He said he was so spooked he didn't want to go back out there for a while.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. Have you ever traveled by airplane much?
Not a whole lot, but
A few times? Or
a few times.
I got to tell you a quick story that happened to me, and this is the truth. I was telling, we were on a flight out
Is it over yet?
to Las Vegas. Not yet.
You said quick story.
It's not that quick.
Oh,
I know it's wishful thinking, but you know me, I like to talk.
okay, go ahead.
So I'm getting on the aircraft. We're in Cleveland, on our way from Cleveland to Los Angeles. I was going out there to visit a friend of mine, and I was flying out with another friend of mine who knows that friend. And we're on the airplane, and we're flying in, and all of a sudden, the airplane, instead of coming in for a landing like we were told was happening, because you could tell they had lowered the flaps, and that slows the airplane down. And then you see the airplane coming down and down. It's a nice slow descent. And then all of a sudden, we make a big arcing turn, which never had happened to me before. I thought, well, maybe they decided that they couldn't land just yet, and they had to, make a circle again to come down. But it happened a couple of times. And the one guy, we actually had been almost to the point of landing. I mean, we were down, we could see the runway coming. And then he pulls up, and that's what alerted me that something was not quite right. So the plane comes up and arcs up again, and maybe 2 minutes later, the pilot comes on and he says, ladies and gentlemen, you might have seen us coming in for an approach. We were ready to land. We were told by the tower that it was safe to land, and we saw another airliner coming up at us. So we decided it might not be a good idea. And we didn't, he said something about ruining your day.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bet it would.
He said it definitely ruined all of our days. So he said we were a little disappointed with that bit of information, so we decided to circle around. He says, this time we've been given a clean runway to land on, and I can see that it's clean. So we're coming in for another round, and we're going to land. But he said, just wanted you to know what happened there. It wasn't pilot error. It was tower error. And he was not happy. So you could hear everybody, as soon as we had circled, when the plane came up to circle around, you could hear everybody go, oh. It was one of those, like something's not right here. Everybody knew it. So I flash forward a few years later. I'm with a different friend, but we were coming in for a landing at Sky Harbor in Phoenix. And as we're coming down, I'm telling the story. I go, the last time I was out this way, out west, this is what happened to me. I told that story. No, I wasn't broadcasting it to the aircraft, But several people around me could hear the story. People behind me, the people in front of me, the folks to the side. And just as soon as I finished telling that story, guess what happens?
Same thing.
Exactly the same thing. And everybody looked at me like I was this
Prophet guy.
evil prophet, and it was my fault. And I am not kidding. They were mad at me. I said, it's not my fault.
Yeah,
I was just telling the story, but it was so ironic that it happened again.
that is. It's funny that people would get upset with you.
It's ridiculous how superstitious they were. It happened again, that's all. And that guy, that pilot was really angry, and he says, thank your tower when you get on the ground for the nice clean runway they gave us.
You mean the first guy or the second guy?
The second guy. He said, thank your tower. He was livid.
I'll be darned.
But stuff happens, you know?
Yeah.
I've had several of those things happen. I went to a Billy Joel concert one time because my girlfriend at the time had won tickets from the local radio station. And we both were working in radio at the time, but not at those stations where we won the tickets. So she gets Billy Joel tickets. She gets like a free album, and then she's supposed to do a meet and greet with Billy Joel before the show. And I thought, that's great. We get to meet Billy Joel. How cool, you know? And we did get to meet him. We got there backstage, and there was a photographer there that I knew, but she's a photographer in Cleveland area, and she did a lot of the rock bands. She would go to every rock concert and shoot pictures, and she always had some great photos. Very good photographer. And she was there backstage with Billy for the radio station. I guess they had hired her to shoot pictures of this meet and greet. So we get into this big group shot of Billy Joel, take our picture, and we were all supposed to get copies of it from the radio station. Well, I never got a copy. It never happened. And I'd called the station afterwards, like a week or two later, and they'd say, oh, no, we don't have any. We didn't get any pictures. So a few years go by, and I run into her again, and I say, hey, Anastasia, you remember that show? Yes, I do. And she said, and she shot 35 millimeter. This was before digital cameras. And she said, I don't have those negatives. I sold them to the station.
Oh,
they have them. And I said, that's a shame, because I really wanted a copy of that shot. That'd have been nice to hang in the man cave.
Yeah, it would be.
But still to this day, I've never seen that picture. So flash forward ahead a few years, like a decade, and I'm talking with my friend Tammy, and Tammy says, I have the coolest story to tell you, Chris. She said, I was playing pool in the flats of Cleveland, and I met this guy who invited all of us after the closing hour, because I guess the bars close at 2 a.m. there, and they stopped serving liquor. And he said, hey, we're all up and still vibrant. Let's all go back to my place, which really was his parents' house. And they had a pool table in the basement. So she goes to this guy's house with a bunch of her friends, and they all are hanging out together, having a good time. And she just happened to walk past this one wall in this guy's house, and on the wall is the picture with me and this whole group of people with Billy Joel. And she said, I couldn't believe it. There's your picture on this guy's wall in his basement with all these people. And he apparently said that his parents had won tickets, had gone to this show, met Billy Joel, like the rest of us did, and were in this group photo.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I was blown away. I said, how ironic is that?
Well, how'd they get a picture and you didn't?
That's what I want to know.
I would say something to somebody, let me tell you.
Well, I did what I could do.
Right.
And, I even knew the photographer, and she didn't have the goods anymore.
Isn't that
so,
something?
Yeah.
That's
Go figure.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. She had seen that picture. I said, well, you've done something I haven't. You've seen the picture, and I've never seen it.
Right.
So ironies like that happen to me all the time. I thought of another ironic story, and I've got a few. Jennifer, you might want to listen to this one.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. This one, I was 18 years old, and a buddy of mine was waiting on me to come down and live down in Texas with him. We were two single 18-year-olds.
Texas?
Yeah, Houston, Texas. So I said, okay. I was trying to get a job in broadcasting, my first one out of a broadcast school. And this one thing that I thought was going to be a good thing fell through.
You went to broadcasting school when you were 18?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was right out of high school. My first day in school was August 3rd, 1980,
Wow.
because it was right after I graduated.
I'll be darned.
So I'm in...
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. Anyway, we got through school, and then I got offered a job, and I was working there. I was only there like 3.5 months, and I got let go. The dreaded let go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was devastating to me because it was the first job I'd ever lost.
I bet it was.
And it was ridiculous. But anyway, so I am let go, and I thought, okay, I was going to be working there, I thought, for a year or two. And then I called my buddy back up, and I go, hey, Carl, you still got room for me down there in Texas? He goes, yeah. I said, well, I got no other career options up here, so I'll come down that way, and maybe we can hang out for a while and have some fun. So he said, all right. So I moved in with him down there in this small little apartment. The washer and dryer was on the outside of the building. Now, the weather in Texas was always pretty good, even in winter, kind of like Arizona. And the washer and dryer was outside. And I thought that was kind of weird because the previous apartments I'd lived in, stuff was on the inside in the basement or
Right.
something. So I go to do my laundry, and I always took a book with me because I didn't want to leave my laundry out there by itself. And this was a double-decker apartment building. There were only 2 floors, and they had like 8 apartments, I think. And we were in one of the bottom floor apartments. So I sat there on the steps guarding my laundry so nobody would steal it, as if somebody might. You never know.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, and I want to take a chance.
Right.
So I'm sitting there reading a book while my laundry's going, and I get up to stretch my legs, and I saw this cigar on the ground. I went, what idiot left a cigar sitting there on the ground?
Don't tell me you started smoking it.
No, I didn't.
okay.
I don't smoke. But I went to pick it up, and the damn thing got up and moved. It was my first experience with a cockroach.
With a live cigar?
It looked like a cigar. It was that big.
I'll be darned.
You know, they say everything's big in Texas.
Exactly.
So I got to pick this thing up, and it walks away.
Especially
Yeah.
live cigars.
Yes. Well, that was my first experience.
Did it have a band on it?
I didn't see that. You know, in cockroach world, that would have been a championship wrestling belt.
Probably would have been.
Yeah. This thing deserved it.
You're right.
So I squashed it like a bug that it was. But that taught me a lesson about bugs in Texas.
Picking
They
up
were
cigars.
huge. Yeah, that too. Don't touch a nasty cigar. But I tell you that story to get into the other story I'm going to tell about Texas. So I worked at Sound Warehouse, which was one of the biggest record chains. I think it was the biggest record store in the country. And it was only in certain parts of the U.S. It wasn't everywhere. But I used to take record inventory. This is back when they had albums, and they were into cassettes. 8 tracks were out. I think we still had a few 8 tracks at that time, back in 1980. I don't know why we still made them, because nobody bought them. But I was looking at these records, and this young man, about my age, about 18 or 19, came in, and everybody introduced me to him as Herman. That was his name. Black guy, nice guy. I mean, we talked jazz all the time. I was into George Benson and Earl Klugh and David Sanborn and all these up-and-coming artists. So as we're talking and get to know each other a little bit, we were both on the same page musically. As I'm taking inventory, he would tell me, well, I'm on that record, and I'm on this record. And I go, really? You're 17 or 18, and you're on these albums.
Herman?
Herman. And I said, I find that a little hard to believe. So I pick up an album, because I'm an album reader. You know, I read the covers as to see who's on the record. So I flip it over, and I go, I don't see your name on here. He goes, you silly kid. They don't credit session drummers. They only credit the real drummer.
Did
of
he
the band.
really say silly kid?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He said DA, I think. You DA. You idiot. But I said, well, I didn't know that. But he said, yeah, I've played on those records. So later on, I asked the warehouse manager, David, and I said, because David was in his probably late 20s, early 30s. I said, David, is it true what Herman said, that he was on those records? He said, if he told you that, it's the gospel truth. He is a great drummer. I think he started doing sessions when he was 15. So he's telling you the truth. So his name was Herman Matthews. So I left there. I was only there for a few months. And when I left, I went back to Cleveland where I could get a job. And I'm sitting there talking about it. Now, this is one of those little ironic stories where I'm talking about that story and I was saying, I wonder whatever happened to him. I'm telling my friend Mike. And we had just been out to Taco Bell running around late at night and had come home to my parents' house where I was living. And we're watching the late night show. At 2 in the morning, the Rick Dees show came on. I don't think it was on very long, maybe a season. And Rick Dees had the house band of Billy Vera and the Beaters. And along with Billy Vera, I see what looks like Herman Matthews on the drums. And I looked at him, and Herman always told me that he loved George Benson, and he wanted to play with George one day. That was his dream. I said, that's a cool dream to have, but, highly unlikely that he'd ever do it. Well, here I see him with Billy Vera and the Beaters on Rick Dees' show. And I'm telling Mike the story, about Texas when I see Herman.
Isn't that something?
I said, man, it would be just my luck they don't introduce the band. And just as soon as I say that, Billy goes, hey, it's time to introduce the band. Let's go now to blah, blah, blah. And this guy's from Detroit, and this guy's from Cleveland, and this guy, and on drums, Herman Matthews from Houston, Texas.
Isn't that something?
That gave me goosebumps.
I bet.
So I thought, Mike goes, you do know him, because I told him his first and last name before they even introduced the band. And I rarely stayed up that late to watch, the late show like that. And this was like 2:15 in the morning. So it was a thrill for me to see that he actually had gone somewhere. Well, flash ahead another 10 or 12 years, and my friend Jay, who worked in Cleveland radio with me, he worked at a different station, and we always ran around together. And a lot of the disc jockeys did that. We would hang out together, because most of us worked during the day or in the evening hours, and then we'd have the rest of the evening to ourselves. And then, most of the guys weren't married, so we would all go to some restaurant and hang out and tell radio stories. And it was a blast. Well, Jay was from Maslin, Ohio, and I'm from Akron. They were like 20-minute drives from each other, maybe 15 minutes. And we were hometown boys, and Jay and I hung out all the time. Even when others didn't, it was just him and I most of the time, and we lived one street off from each other. There was nothing going on. We'd call each other and say, hey, what are you doing? Oh, let's hang out. Let's get together and just listen to music or do something. So Jay gets these tickets, freebies, to go to this George Benson show. And what made it special for me was two of my favorite guitarists, George Benson and Earl Klugh, were playing together. They had an album together called Collaboration. And I said, man, that's a blast. I get to see two of my heroes together and on the same stage.
I bet you I know what's going to happen.
So, yeah. So we get to the front row theater, which was the theater in the round. The stage would spin just like the one down in Phoenix. So we're there sitting together, and I go, Jay, that looks like my friend Herman Matthews I've told you about on the stage. If that's him, that's a mind blower, because he's doing what he said he always wanted to do, and that's play with George Benson. I said, I hope they introduce the band. Well, they did a couple of songs, 3 or 4 songs maybe, and then they introduced the band. And when he introduced on drums Herman Matthews from Houston, Texas,
His dream came
it
true.
gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, I bet.
And he did what he set out to do.
I'll be darned.
So flash ahead another few years.
Uh-oh,
I tell my wife,
not another one.
I tell my wife that story, after we got married, and we had an occasion to be in Las Vegas. So I happened to see that Herman Matthews was in town, and I said, we've got to go see him. I don't know that he would remember me, because I was 18 years old then. I looked so different. And so we get there, I meet Herman, and I tell him the story. He goes, Chris, he said, I remember those days. I remember that. I remember the situation, but dude, I don't remember you. And I said, well, I look totally different, and I was only there like 3 months. But you used to tell me that story, and I was so excited when I saw you on stage with Benson and Earl Klugh. He goes, yeah, that was a magic time, man. I loved it. So he didn't remember me, but he remembered the situation and the store that he would come into to talk to us all the time. It was almost every day, because he'd do sessions in the evening, and then he'd come back, just after he woke up, because he woke up kind of late in the day. So around 11 o'clock or noon, he'd come wandering into the store for something to do, because he knew we were all there all the time. And he would chat with us while we did our jobs.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Herman Matthews. And then since he's toured with Kenny Loggins and, all sorts of artists. But you can see him on YouTube a lot. He does a lot of drum clinics, and he used to like to bake stuff and make stuff.
The Susie Homemaker?
Oh, it was peanut brittle. That's what it was.
Oh.
because I think he would bring it into the store, say Herman's homemade peanut brittle. And
I like peanut brittle.
that was good stuff. But anyway, my remembrances of Herman Matthews.
That's pretty cool how that ended up, you know?
Yeah. You run into celebrities on occasion.
Yeah, I ran into one and it hurt too.
And you picked yourself up
Then
and
I
dusted
picked
your
myself,
knees.
dusted off, walked away.
Who was it that you ran into?
Chotaro.
Charo.
Yeah.
The hoochie coochie girl.
Yeah, we were in Laughlin, Mary and I. I think, yeah, the kids were there too.
Was it in the casino or where did you see
We
it?
were, actually, Mary and I, we were going back up to our room. The kids were down still in the casino, goofing off and stuff. And I think they were old enough.
I hope so.
Well, no, I mean, no, they weren't 21 yet, no, they weren't. So they were playing in the arcade.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the story I'd stick with.
I am sticking with it. No, they were in the arcade. Mary and I went back up to the room to go relax. You know, we've been gambling all evening, drinking our beers and what have you. So we're standing at the doors of the elevator to go back up to the room. And the doors open up. And there's a lady and two big old bruisers standing next to her on either side of her. And she says, "Hola, come on in." And Mary and I, she looks familiar. Oh, that's Charo. She was doing a show at the place we were staying.
Yeah. Fantastic guitar player, by the way.
Yeah, Flamingo.
Yeah,
Is it flamenco?
Flamenco, yeah.
Yeah, she plays the flamingos.
You know, those long-necked birds.
Long neck guitars,
Yeah,
but most of them are pink too.
I believe that.
And you know, they could only eat with their heads upside down.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And depending on what they eat, their feathers change a different color.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
they eat a lot of Creole, I guess, so that's why they're pink.
Yep.
Okay, getting back to the story. Anyways, we're standing there and come on in. So we walked in there and, you know, it was just Mary and I and her two bodyguards. And and I'm standing next to her and she's yapping away. Yeah, no, how are you guys? How are you? We're fine, good, you know. What's your name? My name's Guard. You know who I am? Yeah, I know who you are, you know. Did you go and see my show? No, not yet, but we're going to, you know. Oh, okay. Why don't you give us some free tickets, lady? You know. No, I didn't say that, but yeah, she kept, you know, elbowing me and talking to me and everything, and as Mary's kind of standing there like, well, what's going on here, you know?
Is she kind of short?
Yeah. She was probably about my shoulder, I guess.
Yeah, she's a cute lady, but you know, she married Xavier Cugat, that what was he, Spanish big band leader that had a lot of rumba type hits back in the 50s
Wow.
and 60s. But it was kind of controversial because he was like 32 or 33, and he married her, and she was
She was like 15
or 16. Yeah, pretty young.
No, he was older than that, wasn't he?
Oh, wait a minute. No, he was like 60.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary stuff.
But
But they stayed married till he passed away.
she must have had some nice parents.
Yeah, well, you kind of wonder. It's like, I would never let my kid marry somebody that old.
60-year-old guy.
No way. If she,
So what, they were married for 20 years, a little over 20 years or
something like that, yeah.
before he...
He passed away, yeah. But anyway, we need to wrap this show up. We're getting past an hour here. But here we are, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that sound means we're at the end of the show again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. Everything must come to an end. Even this mess.
I was just starting to have fun.
Yeah. Your definition of fun is a little scary. No, actually, it is fun.
It is fun.
I enjoy doing this. I hope you enjoy listening to it. It's just two guys talking. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
If you want to get in touch with us, if you have any interesting stories to tell, perhaps maybe we can use your story from an email that you send us.
That would be cool.
Send us an email to bunkerboysunderground@gmail.com. That's bunkerboysunderground@gmail.com. And if you'd like to see our webpage, which there isn't much there yet, but sometimes we put some show notes there and some links, it's bunkerboysunderground.podbean.com. Podbean is P-O-D as in David, B as in Bean, E-A-N as in Nancy. Podbean. bunkerboysunderground.podbean.com. We have enjoyed entertaining you. We hope you'll stick with us and download future shows. I'm Chris.
I'm Garth.
And we are
The Bunker Boys.